Welcome back to our series of the Mussar Movement. Today we're going to be taking a detour. This year is Lilinus Rachalei Bas Rav Chaim Shalom. Now, so far we've discussed Rabbi Soslanter's idea, how it was fulfilled. We've already learned about Rav Nosson Finkel, the Alter. And to do it more chronologically, we should have gone first with Kelm from his first one of the three primary disciples of Rabbi Soslanter, the Alter from Kelm, Rav Simcha Zisel Ziv. Now, the way our focus of Kelm was going to be Rav Dessler. If anyone was the poster child of Kelm, it was he. Arguably, you could say perhaps it was Rabbi Rucham Levovitz, or perhaps Rav Elu Lopian, but the most famous because of his impact on Jewry was Rav Dessler. So what I'm going to do now is a detour. It is, I confess, it's disingenuous. It's not directly connected. Many people find it would even somewhat absurd to talk about the Mussar Movement and get today's story involved, but I have an agenda. And we're going to be discussing today the great God of Rav Chaim Ozer Grodzenski, Reb Chaim Ozer, who was a contemporary of Chaim Brisker, the Chafetz Chaim, Dor Sameach, and yet everyone recognized him as the undisputed God of Dor. Chaim Ozer never got the credit that he deserved. In other words, if you ask people today about Gedolim, people think of this and that, and not even many even know the name of Chaim Ozer. So, first of all, it's a wonderful opportunity to correct the wrong and try and give the credit. Now, why is it Chaim Ozer was never recognized? I'm going to suggest 4 reasons. Firstly, because he had no surviving children. He had one daughter who was a brilliant girl, beautiful girl, and she was clearly his disciple, but I think it was at the age of 16 she developed a disease, and 4 years later she was no more. Rav Chaim Ozer was able to emerge from this unbelievable tragedy with the same grace that marked his life all along, and with a smile on his face that was always adorned on his face, continued to guide European Jewry, world Jewry. So one reason was because I think he had no children who survived him. Secondly, because there is really no yeshiva named after him, albeit I think there's one in Bnei Brak, but nothing most of us have heard of. He also was not a Rosh Yeshiva, and as a rule, people became much more famous if they had yeshivos. And the other reason was Rav Chaim Ozer was the man most responsible for having committed the rehabilitation of Jewry after World War I. Single-handedly, Rabbi Berelwein used the expression, which I really love. He said, Chaim Ozer carried European Jewry on his back, Lithuanian Jewry on his back. And that's really what he did. Now, Chaim Ozer was able to rehabilitate Jewry that was totally destroyed and devastated. Who lost World War I? So you would say, of course, Germany. But the fact of the matter is, not only did Germany lose, France, who was a victor, also lost. France lost over 1 million men. So Germany lost, and Austria lost. Russia lost. Millions. France lost, England lost, Canada lost, America lost. But the greatest loser were the Jews. When the Russians captured a town, they burned the Jewish homes. When the Germans captured a town, they burned the Jewish homes. Everyone picked on the Jews. They were the greatest losers. And single-handedly, Chaim Ozer was able to rehabilitate European Jewry after World War I. And everything that he rehabilitated was all annihilated in the Holocaust. So there was no remnant, nothing to survive from all the work that he did. So now let's give him the credit that he deserves. Now, especially I want to talk about him because he had a very prominent impact on Rav Dessler, on all of Jewry. So here's my excuse to bring into our course of Mussar a short biography of Rav Chaim Ozer. Let me just call the staff here of Na'aleh because we want to do a close-up, because I'm very proud that we've just come out with a new book called Too Beautiful, which I'll show you in just a moment. And that moment has now arrived. Here's Too Beautiful. And this book has a story about Chaim Ozer, which I think depicts, better than any story I know, the greatness of a Gadol Hador. What is it makes a man so unbelievably great? And we told the following story about Rav Chaim Ozer. Rav Chaim Ozer is the helm of European Jewry, and from his house in Vilna, he's leading everything. Now, in that home, here is an analogy that I heard from Rabbi Yitzchok Breidowitz, who developed it based on his impression from his Rosh Yeshiva, Rav Yaakov Ruderman. He said, picture the chess grandmaster sitting at a table where there are 16 opponents. And he's skirting up and down the table, up and down the table, up and down the table, playing everyone simultaneously. That was Rav Chaim Ozer, but there were no opponents. At his table in his house in 7 Zvolna Street in Vilna, there is the widow who wants to know how she's going to marry her daughter. And the Rosh Yeshiva has a question regarding curriculum. And there's a person who wants to know how he's going to distribute Joint Distribution Committee funds. And there's someone else who wants to know how to deal with the government. Someone else has a business dispute. And there's 16 people there, and there's people coming all the time. He's able to talk with all of them simultaneously. As he's writing his Chiddushei Torah, his wife has the phone in her hand, telling him shahs that are coming in from overseas. He's speaking to her. And as this is happening, there is a telegraph station in his basement. They're bringing up cables every moment for his attention. The mailman comes 3 times a day to bring him mail. For 2 reasons. First of all, it's the only way they can keep up with all the mail, the volume of mail that came to Chaim Ozer. And otherwise, the mailman would just break his back carrying so much mail. 3 times a day the mail was delivered. And he would deal with every letter, respond to every person. As he is writing his Chidushim, as he's speaking to people, and if anyone thought, and how could you not, how in the world could he really follow what's going on when I'm speaking to him, someone else speaking to him, he's writing his Chidushim, his wife's talking, telling him things from the phone? If anyone had a question, he'd repeat what they said verbatim.